Welcome to the AppSec Insiders Podcast. I'm Jared. I'm joined here with Iman and Farshad. Say hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
And we're the hosts of this episode of AppSec Insiders. Um, as always, this is a show where we explore the ever-evolving and intriguing world of application and cloud security. But before we get into today's discussion, we have a few housekeeping items. So, to meet us in person, check our events page, or we'll also be at the following events. Just pull up my trusty list here. We will be at the OWASP Vancouver meetup. The next one is Thursday, August 21st, 2025. The date is currently July 17th at the time of recording. And there will be a special hands-on security workshop on Thursday, September 18th. We will also be at Sector, now called Sector, a Black Hat event, also called Black Hat Canada. And that will be September 30th to October 2nd. That'll be fun. DEF CON 33 is coming up August 7th to 10th. That'll be in Las Vegas as it normally is. We will not be attending this year as we know we are normally, but we have other commitments this year. I hope that you go and tell us all about it. And lastly, there's the Vancouver Cybersecurity Summit. That's on Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. All right. Recently, in other news, we launched our Eureka DevSecOps platform, which centrally orchestrates your scanners, correlates the results, and manages your application security threats and risks. Check it out on our website or the Azure Marketplace. Also, if you are an AppSec professional looking for an opportunity to work with some of the best in the industry, or you're a developer with an interest in cybersecurity, be sure to check out our careers page at forwardsecurity.com/careers. Lastly, if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing and share with anyone who you think may also enjoy listening. It would mean a lot. Gentlemen, it's good to see you. What will we be discussing today?
Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Um, and today, we're here to discuss a critical security vulnerability that affects the core tool in the AI development ecosystem, the MCP inspector by Anthropic. And the vulnerability tracked as CV 2025-49596. And it carries out as a CVSS score of 9.4, actually, not 5.
Wow.
And it's very high, actually, nearly the maximum severity possible. And what makes this particularly concerning is that it represents one of the first critical RCE or remote code execution vulnerabilities in one of the MCP ecosystem tools, and it exposes a new class of browser-based attacks against AI developer tools. And if you're using MCP tools in your development framework workflow, it's very crucial for you to listen to this one. And what is MCP actually? Before diving into the vulnerability, let's quickly understand that we're dealing what we're dealing with. And the model context protocol or MCP is a communication framework designed to connect AI agents and tools. The developers they use it to debug their MCPs. I'm talking about the tool actually, the MCP inspector. But think of MCP as the backbone that enables real-time collaboration between AI systems and the real world. For example, I can give you an example. There is an MCP which is a Chrome extension, and you can talk to Chrome using your Claude or Cursor AI by just typing a command and opening and browsing web pages. I believe all of you know Selenium. We use that to write some UI tests, and it's exactly like that. You talk to for example, your browser, and you ask the cloud or your LLM to book a ticket to Thailand, and it goes to the browser, opens the website, it searches in Google, and in the end it books a ticket for you. And this is one of the use cases. And MCP servers are APIs that facilitates interaction between systems, and they can the system that they can run on cloud infrastructure or locally on your machine. And the most common implementations, they use Python or JavaScript. And with major adoption from like big companies such as Microsoft. And the key point here is that MCP has become fundamental infrastructure for AI development now in 2025. It's not like a niche tool. It's being used across the industry actually. And about the tool, MCP Inspector, Farshad, do you want to talk about the
I
tool?
have a question that I think a lot of our audience might be interested in that as well. Why MCP? Like there are already other APIs and other ways of talking between applications. Is this something that would run on top of a REST API, or is this an extension? Like why create another protocol where we have other ways of interacting with applications such as REST?
So MCP is specifically made for adding tools to AI. So it gives your chatbot the ability to access functions that you write, which in turn can also access, one of those functions can just be literally, run a system command. But you can also give it functions like add two numbers together. So you write a function and you can expose that to the chatbot so that it knows what tools it can access. And that interaction between AI and you writing functions for it to use, that model together is the MCP, or the model context protocol. It basically it puts your model in the context of, or I guess maybe it gives it context for what you're trying to do by defining the functions it's allowed to access. And I guess the protocol is that, it sort of it does some tech magic behind the scene basically to wire it all together so that the chatbot knows what it has access to and how to use it. And so yeah, the protocol includes specs about how to write these functions. You don't just write a regular function, you have to write it with a big comment block that has specific information in it and is formatted in a specific way for the chatbot to understand so it knows how to use it. Does that answer your question?
That makes sense. Yeah, no, my
Yeah.
question was more around, Jared, it was more around like, in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, you want to interact with a model. Well, the model is running in a server. So
Mhm.
why not use a REST API? But I guess you still have to have the message formats. So this is something that goes on top of that. But then I guess in some cases you're not communicating. I was thinking more from a network communication perspective. Like,
Mm.
why are we not using REST? And then we put specific message. Like at the end of the day, you're talking to a model or like that's a service. So we could
Mhm.
use existing protocols. Why add so
Yeah.
maybe
So
this is on top of REST. Maybe that's
yeah, it
what's
is.
going
So
on.
so there this is not about so it uses the word protocol, but it's not a network protocol. So the way that you communicate it is still over I don't know, whatever. I don't know what protocol it uses when you send a message from your client, whether it's a CLI client or a browser client, into the chatbot model server. I don't know
Gotcha.
what protocol it uses there. It could very well be REST. I'm sure a lot of them are built on top of REST, but this protocol is not about communication protocol. It's about writing a bunch of tools, and yeah, it's a protocol you can think of it almost like a schema. Also, it's like it explains how it tells the chatbot. You write a function in a specific way that tells the chatbot how to use it and what it's
Right,
for.
right, right. That makes
That's
sense.
that's what the
Makes
protocol
sense.
is focused on, not the communication between client and server.
That makes sense. No, thank you.
It uses JSON RPC version 2 actually.
Right.
And as Jared told, even though we have like traditional APIs which are for application to application, but this MCP is specifically designed for AI model integration.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's
And
that's
so
it.
it's interesting the reason that this flaw exists is not because of AI. I think it's hitting the news because it's got AI in it, and this is the popular tool that MCP authors are using. But AI actually doesn't have to do at all with this vulnerability. It's a very classic vulnerability. So there's a
Yeah.
server that runs, and you can send it commands. So you run the server, it runs on your local host. I think on port, I don't have the in front of me, but it's like port 677, 6277 there. I see it. And so browsers for a long time have had this vulnerability in them where if you want to talk to something local, you can put the address localhost, or you can put the address 127.0.0.1, or you can use the broadcast IP of 0000, and the browser will treat that as localhost. So for instance, right, if I create a blog or a website and I have some Ajax caller behind the scenes that calls out to 0000, did I do the 40? And then colon a port number, I can actually use Ajax to talk to services running on your local machine if they're running. Um,
But
and
before
so
before that, Jared, we didn't explain what is the MCP inspector tool and what does it do.
Right. Well, give me a second to continue because I think I can
Sure.
explain the exploit without even explaining what the MCP inspector tool is. Because um, uh, the way that you run one of the MCP servers, so they have this middle part. So there's the client, and then this middle part called the proxy, and then the servers that have your models or whatever in them. But the proxy can be used to spin up new servers, and that proxy itself listens on port 6277, and you can talk to it on that port, and with just the URL, you can send it a system command to run. And usually the system commands are like run node and then this file. And because these MCP servers often you program them in Node or Python or something like that. And so in order to spin them up, you have to, it's almost like in Visual Studio Code, like you in your launch config file, you have to tell it what program to point at and what command to run. And so in this case, instead of telling it run the command node space MCP server.js, instead you would say run the command, I don't know, rm, dash rf root directory or whatever. You can give it just a system command to run.
Awesome.
So I
Awesome.
guess in
And
this case, the inspector ran as a web server with no authentication. So to what you were saying, Jared,
that's
right?
right.
So we're able to receive requests because, and I think what you were saying, this is not unique to this MCP. Lots of
Yeah.
things run locally on port 000 with no auth. So you
Yeah.
could leverage this to come into those services. That's pretty bad, right? And in
Yeah.
this case,
And
it
and you
happened
bring
to
up a
be
really
this.
good
Yeah,
You
sorry.
bring up a really good point because that was the solution, was to add authentication to it. So now when you make a request, the updated version of this MCP server is it's not just the URL. You can't just send a command by URL. You have to send the command by URL and also include an authorization key.
And also it is interesting that they target like developers. And I have seen a similar thing that because in web, even I'm giving you an example of Web3. Like in Web3, most of the developers they have like crypto wallets and everything. And now there are some GitHub repos that they have some some malicious files. They just git clone that, and they want to like try that open source project to run it, and suddenly the malware steals all the wallets and keylogger steals all the. And I know a guy, he lost $40,000, and he was
Oh
one
my
of the
God.
develop. He's a developer in Web3 space actually.
Oh my
And
God.
usually they don't, if they might think, okay, why we should target developers? They're not like a valuable target, but here they are because the worst case scenario is that if you infect that computer with a malware, now you can change the whole code base.
Exactly.
Now, if they are in crypto business, now you can access maybe to even if they have access to the private key of the company, maybe you can steal the private key of the company.
And
So
exactly, and with a lot of startup, I mean, in more mature organizations, developers don't have access to production keys, but in a lot of startups, they have access to everything. When the company's small, that developers working on the staging environment and the production environment. So I guess if you could compromise their
I
machine,
can
you would get access to a lot of juicy resources, wouldn't you?
Hmm.
North Korean hackers, they stole $600 million from Ronin
For
because
who?
the developer had access to private key of the wallets, and the developer
Oh,
they received like a job description from a North Korean. I mean, it was masquerading themselves as an American company with like $1 million salary, and then they sent a PDF file to sign that,
wow.
and then the computer got infected, and now they stole the private key and they stole
Wow.
$600 million. It means that developers are valuable targets, actually.
Hmm.
And yeah, in case of this MCP inspector, also as Jared told, it's like Burp Suite for us. Like when we do the penetration test, we use Burp Suite. Now, for the case of MCP developer, they use this MCP inspector, which has like a client which is in React and a proxy which is a Node.js server. And because like it seems like most of the browsers, when you send like when you send a request to 0.0.00 point, sorry, 0.0.0.0 IP, then it seems they don't have enough guardrails there, and you can easily run the CSRF attack, cross-site request forgery, and then you can send the request. It is pretty dangerous, actually.
So
It's
I know we just have a couple of minutes left, but I have one final question. So I guess if the developers bind their tool to localhost instead of 0.0.0, is that another mitigation?
No, because the browser, the vulnerability, it's two vulnerabilities in one. One is that this server doesn't or didn't require authentication and accepted just a raw command string that you could run through a URL. So that's one vulnerability. The second was in the browser that anything running on localhost in your browsers can reach them by going to 0.0.0.0. And this vulnerability has been in browsers for a long time. And it seems like it brought back to the brought back to, I don't know, the news last year. Um, but they haven't fixed it yet, and it seems like it might be for compatibility reasons.
but you know, most of modern browsers, they block that 127, the loopback IP actually.
Right, they block that, and they block localhost, but
Yeah,
0.0.0.0 is
yeah.
unblocked and leads to localhost.
Okay,
It's a strange yeah, there's a
situation.
historical reason for it that I
Yeah,
can't
they
remember.
can use DNS rebinding also for this one. But
Mhm.
yeah, we only have like 1 minute left. Is there any closing thought?
Not for me. No, this has been a very insightful discussion, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy it quite a bit as well.
Yeah, that concludes this episode of our AppSec Insiders podcast. And we hope you have enjoyed learning about this discussed CVE. And remember to tune in next time as we delve deeper in the role of application and cloud security and explore new ways to protect our digital assets. Also, we appreciate your support and engagement. And if you have any topics in your mind, please don't hesitate and to reach out to us. Our email is appsecinsiders@forwardsecurity.com, or our Twitter handle is FWD_SEC, or feel free to follow Forward Security on LinkedIn for the latest in application security news and other opportunities. Please also consider subscribing to our podcast. Have a good one.
Buttons there, subscribe, click here. Thanks, everybody.